Kiona! Zitkala's voice cracks as she clutches her sister's torn bracelet, found near the mission school's stables under moonlight, her heart pounding with dread. Father Thomas's cold threat to have her arrested if she searches further chills her bones. Why did Kiona vanish when everything seemed calm just hours ago? Zitkala, a 26-year-old Lakota woman, weaves traditional cloth to support her 12-year-old sister Kiona, the only family she has left after their parents died in an army raid years ago. In 1895 South Dakota, she scrapes by in poverty, enduring the scorn of white townsfolk who see her as less than human. Working for a wealthy white family, she faces daily insults and meager pay, her hands calloused from labor. Her dream is to take Kiona away from this land of conflict, but with no money and no legal protection, hope feels like a distant star. The loom clatters to the dirt floor as Zitkala's hands freeze, her eyes darting to the open door where Kiona's laughter should echo. Moonlight spills across the tent, but the night is too quiet. She stands, her shadow trembling, and glances at the wooden clock, its hands mocking her with the late hour. Her fingers dig through Kiona's bag, finding only crumpled school books, no note to ease her tightening chest. She pulls on her shawl, the fabric rough against her skin, and steps outside, the moon's glow sharpening her fear. A sick feeling churns her stomach, her heart thudding as she imagines Kiona lost in the dark. Her hand brushes the bag again, and a slip of paper falls out, scrawled with stables in Kiona's childish hand. Her breath catches, eyes wide with dread, and she bolts from the tent, moccasins kicking dust, the paper clutched tight. Each step pounds with her vow to find her sister, her mind racing with questions about that strange note. The cold night air stings her face, but she runs faster, driven by a mother's love for her only family, determined to uncover why Kiona hasn't come home. Dust swirls around Zitkala's moccasins as she sprints down the road, her ragged breaths clouding in the chilly air. Her eyes scan the shadows for Kiona's small figure, finding nothing but darkness. She reaches the mission school's iron gate and pounds it with her fists, the clang piercing the silence. A dim light flickers from Father Thomas's office, and she shouts his name, her voice raw with fear and fury. The door creaks open, and Thomas looms in his black robe, his icy gaze locking onto her trembling frame. She demands to know where Kiona is, her hands shaking as she insists on searching the school, her words sharp and desperate. Thomas's lips twitch, and he claims Kiona ran off with other native children, his voice flat, almost bored. Her nails dig into her palms, and she snaps that Kiona would never leave without telling her defiance cutting through the air. Thomas's eyes narrow, and he steps forward, his shadow swallowing her, gesturing to shut the door. She presses her hands against the cold bars, her chest heaving, refusing to back down. Her resolve hardens as she glares at the closing door, vowing to find answers no matter what Thomas hides. Father Thomas's heavy door groans as Zitkala shoves it open, her boots thudding against the wooden floor, her eyes burning with resolve. She demands why Kiona would vanish without a word, her voice shaking but unyielding, pointing out that Kiona always returns home on time. Thomas folds his arms, his sharp eyes slicing through her, and sneers that a Lakota woman dares question a priest, his tone thick with scorn. She steps closer, her breath catching, and accuses him of hiding something, recalling Kiona's fear of his strange, lingering stares. Thomas rises, his chair scraping loudly, and leans in, his whisper cold as he warns she'll regret slandering him in town. His cruel smile twists, and he murmurs that Kiona is somewhere you'll never reach, his words dripping with hidden knowledge. He threatens to summon Sheriff Harlan, saying a native like her would be locked away for defiance, his hand pointing to the door. Zitkala's jaw tightens, her heart hammering with rage and fear, and she locks eyes with him, silently swearing to unravel his secrets. She spins on her heel, storming out, her footsteps echoing, her mind seething with Thomas's taunting smile and her burning need to save Kiona. Moonlight glints off the mission school's walls as Zitkala slips away from Father Thomas's office, her boots silent on the grass. She creeps toward the stables, her heart pounding, eyes darting for any sign of him watching. Her fingers brush the wooden fence, and she freezes, spotting Kiona's torn bracelet caught on a splintered post. She drops to her knees, hands trembling as she lifts it, the frayed beads cold against her skin. Nearby, deep wagon tracks scar the dirt, twisting her stomach with the fear that Kiona was taken. She clutches the bracelet, its weight fueling her dread, and notices a scrap of unfamiliar cloth snagged nearby, which she tucks into her pocket. A sudden crunch of footsteps snaps her head up, and she dives behind a stack of barrels, her breath shallow, pulse racing. The footsteps fade, but her chest tightens with the certainty that Kiona's disappearance is no accident. She grips the bracelet and cloth, her resolve hardening like stone, and slips back into the shadows, determined to uncover more clues, no matter the danger lurking in the night. Kiona's bracelet swings in Zitkala's fist as she races back to their tent, her breath clouding in the chilly air. She bursts inside, slamming the door, and sinks to the floor, inspecting the bracelet's cut cord, its edges sliced clean by a blade. Her mind flashes to Kiona's story of a teacher with unsettling eyes, her stomach knotting with suspicion. She grabs a scrap of paper and scribbles Thomas's cryptic words, his cruel smile haunting her as she tries to piece together his lies. Rummaging through Kiona's bag, her fingers brush a folded drawing, and she unfolds it to reveal a child's sketch of the mission stables, her breath catching. The image sparks a flicker of hope, as if Kiona left a clue before vanishing. Her hands shake, torn between fear and determination, and she resolves to seek Wakanda's wisdom about past disappearances. Zitkala pulls on her shawl, tucking the drawing and bracelet into her pocket, and steps into the night, her heart heavy with worry but burning with purpose, ready to fight for answers about her sister's fate. Wakanda's door creaks under Zitkala's urgent knocks, firelight flickering through the cracks. The old Lakota woman opens it, her lined face softening with concern, and pulls Zitkala inside, gesturing to a woven mat. Zitkala's voice trembles as she recounts Kiona's disappearance, sliding the torn bracelet and stable drawing across to Wakanda. She pleads for any knowledge of past vanishings, her eyes searching the elders for hope. Wakanda's fingers trace the bracelet, her gaze darkening, and she whispers that her own daughter vanished near the mission school a decade ago. She speaks of rumors about strange wagons circling the school at night, her voice heavy with old grief. Zitkala leans closer, her heart racing, as Wakanda reveals she once saw Father Thomas meeting a cloaked stranger under moonlight. The words hit like a blow, and Zitkala's fists clench, her fear for Kiona sharpening into resolve. She thanks Wakanda, gripping the bracelet, and vows to return to the stables, determined to chase every lead to find her sister, no matter what shadows hide the truth. A faint glow from Zitkala's oil lamp sways as she creeps back to the mission school's stables, her boots brushing the damp grass. She scans the fence, her fingers tracing the rough wood until they catch on a scrap of Kiona's dress, torn and snagged. Her heart lurches and she kneels, spotting heavy boot prints mingling with wagon tracks in the dirt. The lamp's light flickers, revealing a glint of metal, a broken buckle half buried nearby, which she tucks into her pocket. A horse snorts in the dark and she fumbles to douse the lamp, her pulse hammering. She ducks behind a stack of barrels, the wood cold against her back, as two men's voices murmur nearby, sharp and urgent. One voice, gruff and familiar, mentions Father's orders and a shipment leaving tonight, sending a chill down her spine. Her fingers tighten around Kiona's bracelet, her resolve steeling as she vows to follow the wagon, no matter the risk, to find her sister. Harsh whispers cut through the night as Zitkala crouches behind the barrels, her breath shallow, straining to catch every word. The men speak of a delivery to an abandoned farm, one grumbling about the priest's rush. She recognizes the gruff voice as a guard who works for Sheriff Harlan, her stomach twisting with suspicion. Her foot nudges a loose pebble, the faint clink making her freeze, but the men don't notice, too focused on their talk. One mentions keeping the kids quiet, and Zitkala's blood runs cold, her mind flashing to Kiona. A folded paper slips from a man's pocket as they turn to leave, landing near her hiding spot. She snatches it, her hands trembling, and unfolds it to find an address scrawled in haste. Her heart races with a mix of fear and hope, and she slips away from the stables, determined to chase the wagon to the farm, clinging to the fragile clue that could lead her to her sister. Hooves thud softly as Zitkala leads a borrowed horse from the Lakota camp, her hands tightening on the reins. She adjusts the scarf over her face, the night air sharp against her skin, and checks the crumpled paper with the farm's address. Her fingers brush Kiona's bracelet in her pocket, grounding her resolve to find her sister. She mounts the horse, her breath steadying, and murmurs a quiet prayer for Kiona's safety. The distant rumble of a wagon spurs her forward, and she guides the horse into the shadows, keeping the mission school in sight. Her mind replays the men's words about the shipment, each syllable fueling her urgency. A twig snaps under the horse's hoof, and she tenses, glancing back, but the camp is still. She urges the horse faster, her heart pounding with a certainty that the wagon holds answers, and she'll risk everything to follow it to Kiona. Wagon wheels creak in the distance as Zitkala urges her horse through the dark fields, her eyes locked on the faint outline of the cart ahead. She keeps low, the cold wind stinging her face, matching the pace to avoid detection. The wagon's lantern sways, casting shadows on the dirt road leading to the abandoned farm. A child's muffled cry pierces the night, and Zitkala's heart leaps, certain it's Kiona's voice, her grip tightening on the reins. She wants to charge forward, to tear her sister from the cart, but her breath catches, knowing she's outnumbered. Her horse snorts, and she pats its neck, whispering for calm, her mind racing with plans to rescue Kiona. Sheriff Harlan's tall figure appears beside the wagon, his lantern sweeping the path, and Zitkala yanks her horse behind a cluster of bushes, her pulse roaring. She presses her face to the ground, dirt smudging her cheek, vowing to stay close until she can act. A twig snaps under Zitkala's elbow as she lies hidden in the bushes, her eyes tracking Harlan's every move. He barks orders to the driver, his voice sharp, demanding the cargo be checked. Zitkala's chest tightens as another cry, unmistakably Kiona's, escapes the wagon, her fingers digging into the soil. She shifts slightly, peering through the leaves, counting 2 guards with Harlan, their rifles glinting in the lantern light. Her hand clutches Kiona's bracelet, the beads biting into her palm, fueling her resolve to save her sister. Harlan's lantern swings toward her hiding spot, and she flattens herself, heart hammering, fearing discovery. The light passes, and she exhales, but Harlan's boots crunch closer, his shadow looming large. She prepares to run, her muscles tensing, determined to follow the wagon to Kiona, no matter the cost. Cold steel grazes Zitkala's shoulder as Harlan's blade slices through her shawl, her body hitting the dirt with a thud. She scrambles back, blood seeping warm down her arm, her eyes wide with terror as Harlan looms over her, his grin cruel. He snarls that she should have stayed home, raising his knife again, but Zitkala rolls away, gasping, thinking only of Kiona. Her hand finds a rock, and she hurls it, missing but buying time to stagger into the trees. Harlan lunges, his blade nicking her side, and she stumbles, vision blurring with pain. A rough hand grabs her, yanking her behind a thick oak, and Roy's gruff whisper tells her to stay quiet. He pulls her deeper into the forest, his grip bruising but steady, as Harlan's shouts fade. Zitkala's legs buckle, her breath ragged, but she clings to Roy, her mind fixed on Kiona, swearing to survive and find her sister. Leaves crunch under Roy's boots as he half-carries Zitkala through the dark forest, her bloodied arm throbbing with every step. She grits her teeth, clutching Kiona's bracelet, her vision swimming but fixed on survival. Roy tears a strip from his shirt, wrapping her wound tightly, his rough hands steady despite his grim expression. He mutters that she's lucky to be alive, warning that Harlan answers to powers too big to fight. Zitkala shakes her head, her voice hoarse, insisting she'll find Kiona no matter who stands in her way. Roy's eyes flicker with something like pity, and he agrees to take her to Wakanda's tent, his steps quickening. She stumbles, pain searing her side, but forces herself forward, driven by the image of Kiona's frightened face. They reach the Lakota camp, and Zitkala vows to uncover Harlan's masters, her resolve burning through the haze of pain. Wakanda's hands tremble as she pours herbal water over Zitkala's wound, the tense firelight casting shadows on her lined face. Zitkala winces, gripping the edge of a blanket, and recounts the wagon and Harlan's attack, her voice cracking with urgency. Wakanda dabs the gash, whispering old Lakota prayers, her eyes heavy with worry. She shares rumors of the mission school's dark secrets, tales of children vanishing under Father Thomas's watch. Zitkala's fingers trace Kiona's bracelet, her heart twisting as she asks Wakanda about past disappearances. The old woman nods, mentioning strange wagons seen near an abandoned farm, her voice low with fear. A sharp sting from the herbs makes Zitkala gasp, but she leans forward, begging for more clues, her determination unwavering. Wakanda's gaze softens, and Zitkala swears to keep fighting, her pain fueling her need to save Kiona. A folded letter slips under Zitkala's tent door, its edges worn, as she sits bandaged, staring at Kiona's empty bed. She snatches it, her hands shaking, and reads a scrawled warning about a traitor among the Lakota, unsigned and chilling. Her breath catches, recalling a friend who asked too many questions about Kiona, and suspicion coils in her gut. She tucks the letter into her pocket, beside Kiona's bracelet, and checks the tent's flap, ensuring no one lurks outside. Zitkala paces, her wound aching, her mind racing with names of those she once trusted. She grips a small knife Wakanda gave her, its weight grounding her resolve to root out the spy. Footsteps rustle nearby, and she freezes, blade ready, her heart pounding with dread of betrayal. She slips out into the night, determined to track the friend and uncover any link to Kiona's disappearance, her trust in her people fracturing but her love for her sister unyielding. Shadows shift across the Lakota camp as Zitkala trails her friend Tala, her knife hidden beneath her shawl. Tala slips toward the river, glancing over her shoulder, and Zitkala's heart sinks, suspecting betrayal. She crouches behind a tent, her bandaged wound throbbing, watching Tala meet a man in a sheriff's uniform, Harlan's deputy. They whisper, passing a small pouch, and Zitkala's nails dig into her palm, her trust in Tala shattering. She edges closer, straining to hear, but her foot snaps a twig, the sound sharp in the quiet. Tala's head jerks up, and Zitkala ducks low, her pulse racing, praying she's unseen. The deputy mutters about orders from town, and Zitkala's mind flashes to Kiona, her resolve hardening to expose Tala. She retreats silently, vowing to confront the traitor later and focus on saving her sister, her anger fueling her next move. Wakanda's voice rises in a Lakota chant as Zitkala gathers the camp's elders, her hands steady despite her aching wound. She pleads for a public prayer ceremony in town, arguing it could pressure Father Thomas to reveal Kiona's fate. Wakanda nods, her eyes fierce, and calls for sacred symbols to be prepared. Zitkala kneels beside her, sketching a plan to draw townsfolk, her voice urgent with hope. A young man, Mato, hesitates, warning of retaliation from the sheriff, but Zitkala's gaze burns, insisting justice is worth the risk. She ties Kiona's bracelet to her wrist, its beads grounding her courage. Mato relents, and the group agrees, their faces set with determination. Zitkala stands, her heart swelling with fragile hope, ready to face the town and demand answers for her sister. Drums pulse in the town square as Zitkala leads the Lakota in a circle, their voices weaving a haunting chant under the evening sky. She raises a feathered staff, her bandaged arm trembling, and calls for justice, naming Kiona and other missing children. Townsfolk gather, some whispering, others glaring, their murmurs growing hostile. Zitkala's eyes scan the crowd, seeking Thomas, her voice rising with defiance as she accuses the mission school of hiding secrets. A man shouts, calling her a liar, and tension ripples through the air. Sheriff Harlan strides in, his boots pounding, flanked by armed men, his sneer cutting through the chant. Zitkala grips the staff tighter, her heart racing, refusing to back down. Eliza, her employer, steps forward from the crowd, her voice sharp, urging calm, but Harlan's men raise their clubs, and Zitkala braces for chaos, determined to make her cry heard. Clubs swing through the air as Harlan's men charge the Lakota circle, shattering the prayer ceremony's rhythm. Zitkala shields a young boy, her bandaged arm burning, shouting for the group to hold firm. Wakanda stumbles forward, her gray hair loose, defying a deputy's shove with a fierce glare, only to be struck across the temple, blood trickling down her cheek. Zitkala lunges to catch her, heart pounding, cradling Wakanda's limp form as chaos erupts. She screams at the men to stop, her voice raw, but they smash sacred symbols, splintering wood. Eliza pushes through the crowd, yelling for peace, her face pale but determined, slowing the deputy's advance. Zitkala's eyes sting with tears, guilt clawing her chest for endangering Wakanda, yet she vows to keep fighting. Dragging Wakanda to safety, she resolves to expose Harlan's cruelty, her rage a flickering flame amidst the pain. Blood seeps through Wakanda's bandage as Zitkala kneels beside her in the tent, dabbing the wound with a damp cloth. Wakanda's eyes flutter open, her voice weak but urging Zitkala to press on for Kiona. Zitkala's hands shake, tears falling as she whispers apologies for the ceremony's failure. Wakanda grips her wrist, recounting her own daughter's loss to the mission school, her words heavy with grief. Zitkala clenches Kiona's bracelet, its beads pressing into her palm, fueling her resolve. She asks about other disappearances, desperation sharpening her tone, and Wakanda mentions a cloaked figure seen with Father Thomas years ago. Zitkala's heart races, sensing a deeper conspiracy, and she swears to uncover it. She tucks a blanket over Wakanda, promising to return, her guilt and determination driving her forward. A crumpled letter lies in Zitkala's palm, slipped under her tent flap, its warning of a second Lakota traitor chilling her bones. She rereads the unsigned words, her breath catching as she recalls Tala's nervous questions about Kiona. Her fingers tighten around Kiona's bracelet, betrayal stinging her heart, and she slips the letter into her pocket. Zitkala checks the tent's entrance, knife in hand, her wound aching with every move. She paces, picturing Tala's smile, now tainted by suspicion, her trust in the camp fraying. The knife's weight steadies her, and she resolves to confront the traitor after finding Kiona. Footsteps rustle outside, and she grips the blade, pulse hammering, ready to face any threat. She steps into the night, vowing to seek the mysterious wanderer for answers, her fear tempered by her unyielding love for her sister. River water ripples under moonlight as Zitkala approaches the bank, her knife tucked beneath her shawl, searching for the wanderer. A shadow moves, and the old Lakota man steps forward, his weathered face lit by a faint glow, his eyes sharp with knowing. Zitkala's voice trembles as she recounts the ruined ceremony and Tala's betrayal, pleading for his help to find Kiona. He listens, his silence heavy, then speaks of a force greater than Father Thomas, his words cryptic yet chilling. She pulls out Kiona's bracelet, her fingers tracing the beads, begging for any clue, her heart pounding with desperation. The wanderer hands her a tattered cloth bearing a strange emblem, urging her to guard it, his voice low with warning. Footsteps crackle in the brush, and he grabs her arm, pulling her behind a tree, his whisper urgent that they're watched. Zitkala's pulse races, but she nods, vowing to uncover the emblem's meaning, her resolve strengthened by the wanderer's guarded trust. Twigs snap under Zitkala's boots as she flees the riverbank, the wanderer's warning echoing in her ears. A cloaked figure moves through the trees, the same emblem glinting on his chest, and she presses herself against a gnarled trunk, her breath shallow. Her wound throbs, but she clutches the emblem cloth, her mind racing with fear of discovery. The figure pauses, scanning the darkness, and Zitkala's hand tightens on her knife, ready to fight if spotted. He moves on, his steps fading, and she exhales, her heart still hammering. She slips back to her tent, checking for followers, her fingers trembling as she unfolds the cloth again. The emblem's sharp lines haunt her, tying to Wakanda's tales of disappearances, and she resolves to confront the mission school's secrets. Zitkala hides the cloth in her pocket, swearing to protect it, her fear fueling her determination to save Kiona. Wakanda's fire crackles as Zitkala kneels beside her, unfolding the wanderer's cloth to show the mysterious emblem. Wakanda's eyes darken, her fingers brushing the fabric, and she whispers it belongs to a secret group tied to the mission school. Zitkala's voice shakes, asking about the group, her heart pounding as she mentions Kiona's bracelet and the stables. Wakanda recounts seeing the emblem when her daughter vanished a decade ago, her voice breaking with old grief. Zitkala grips Wakanda's hand, pleading for more, her eyes burning with hope and fear. Wakanda warns the group is powerful, urging caution, and presses a small dagger into Zitkala's palm for protection. The name SOSA slips from Wakanda's lips, a rumor from years past, sending a chill down Zitkala's spine. She tucks the dagger away, vowing to infiltrate the school and uncover SOSA's role, her love for Kiona outweighing her dread of the looming threat. A worn scarf tightens around Zitkala's hair as she approaches the mission school, her heart pounding with the weight of her disguise. She knocks on the back door, claiming to be a new cleaner, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The caretaker grunts, handing her a broom, and assigns her to sweep near Father Thomas's office, his eyes barely glancing at her. Zitkala steps inside, the school's cold halls swallowing her, and grips the broom, scanning for any sign of Thomas. His sharp voice echoes from a classroom, and she ducks her head, sweeping slowly to avoid notice. Her wound aches under the tight bandage, but she pushes forward, eyes darting to the office door, plotting to slip inside. A young teacher pauses, squinting at her, and asks where she's from, suspicion lacing her tone. Zitkala mumbles a vague reply, her pulse racing, and resumes sweeping, vowing to seize her chance to uncover Kiona's fate. Dust swirls under Zitkala's broom as she inches closer to Thomas's office, her ears straining for his footsteps. She glimpses him through a window, berating a student, and seizes the moment, easing the office door open with a trembling hand. Inside, she spots a cloaked figure leaving through a side exit, the SOSA emblem glinting on his robe, her breath catching. Zitkala creeps to the desk, her fingers brushing papers, and finds a note mentioning new shipments and SOSA, her heart racing with dread. Thomas's voice grows louder outside, and she freezes, shoving the note into her pocket. The cloaked figure's words about keeping the children quiet echo in her mind, tying to Kiona, and she vows to find the shipment's source. A floorboard creaks under her weight, and she ducks behind a cabinet, pulse hammering, determined to escape with the clue. Papers rustle as Zitkala rummages through Thomas's desk, her knife ready in her pocket, the office's dim light casting long shadows. She uncovers a ledger with names, her eyes widening at Kiona, scrawled among others, her chest tightening with fear. Footsteps thud outside, and Thomas bursts in, his eyes narrowing as he spots the open drawer. Zitkala scrambles under the desk, her breath shallow, clutching the ledger's edge, her mind racing with Kiona's name. Thomas slams the drawer shut, muttering about SOSA's orders, and draws a dagger, his shadow looming over her hiding spot. Her fingers grip Kiona's bracelet, grounding her resolve to survive for her sister. He lunges toward the desk, blade glinting, and she bolts, knocking over a chair to slow him. Zitkala sprints out, vowing to use the ledger's secrets, her heart pounding with the certainty that Kiona is alive. A rusted hinge squeals as Zitkala shoves through the school's back door, the ledger tucked inside her shawl, her lungs burning from the sprint. She weaves through the alleys, Thomas's shouts fading behind her, and clutches the stolen note, its words about shipments searing her mind. Her wound pulses, blood seeping through the bandage, but she stumbles toward the abandoned warehouse mentioned in the note, driven by Kiona's name. Inside she finds chains bolted to the floor, her stomach churning at the thought of children trapped here. A girl, barely older than Kiona, darts from the shadows, whispering of cloaked men and nightly wagons, her eyes wide with fear. Zitkala kneels, offering her scarf to warm the girl, and asks about Kiona, her voice trembling with hope. The girl shakes her head, saying others were taken away, and Zitkala's heart sinks, but she swears to rescue them all, her resolve unbroken. Chains clank in the warehouse's gloom as Zitkala comforts the trembling girl, her knife drawn, eyes scanning for guards. The girl recounts being locked here by men in SOSA cloaks, her voice shaking, and Zitkala's grip tightens, picturing Kiona in such a place. She hides the girl behind crates, promising to return, and searches for more clues, her boots silent on the damp floor. A distant hoofbeat grows louder, and she peers through a cracked window, spotting Harlan's silhouette approaching with armed men. Her pulse spikes, and she pulls the girl close, whispering to stay quiet, her mind racing to protect them both. The ledger's weight in her shawl reminds her of Kiona's name, fueling her courage. Zitkala drags a heavy crate to block the door, buying time, and vows to escape with the girl, determined to expose SOSA's horrors. Wooden crates groan as Zitkala wedges them against the warehouse door, her hands slick with sweat, shielding the trembling girl beside her. Harlan's boots thud outside, his voice barking orders to search every corner, and Zitkala's heart hammers, knowing capture means death. She pulls the girl into a narrow gap between crates, her knife glinting in the dim light, whispering for her to stay silent. The stolen ledger presses against her chest, its list of names, including Kiona's, fueling her resolve. Harlan's men kick at the door, splintering wood, and Zitkala's breath catches, her mind racing for an escape. She spots a loose board in the wall and pries it open, urging the girl to crawl through, her own wound screaming with each move. A guard's shout echoes as the door buckles, and Zitkala dives through the gap, vowing to keep the ledger safe and find Kiona. Mud squelches under Zitkala's boots as she leads the girl through the dark alleys, the warehouse's chaos fading behind them. Her wound pulses, blood soaking her shawl, but she grips the ledger, its secrets about SOSA burning in her mind. The girl clings to her, whispering of other children taken by cloaked men, and Zitkala's heart aches, picturing Kiona's face. She navigates to the Lakota camp, her eyes scanning for Harlan's men, the girl's small hand steadying her resolve. At Wakanda's tent, she entrusts the girl to the elder's care, her voice cracking as she begs Wakanda to hide her. Zitkala unfolds the ledger, showing Kiona's name, and asks Wakanda to rally the camp, her hope flickering. A distant shout signals guards approaching, and Zitkala slips away, swearing to confront SOSA's evil. Wakanda's firelight flickers as Zitkala collapses beside her, the ledger trembling in her hands, her voice urgent as she recounts the warehouse horrors. She points to Kiona's name, her eyes pleading for Wakanda's wisdom, the weight of betrayal and loss heavy in her chest. Wakanda's face hardens, and she reveals hearing the name SOSA years ago linked to her daughter's disappearance, her voice thick with pain. Zitkala's fingers trace Kiona's bracelet, grounding her as she begs for any lead to the cloaked men. Wakanda mentions a townswoman, Eliza, who might know of SOSA's dealings, her gaze steady despite her grief. Zitkala nods, her resolve steeling, and tucks the ledger into her shawl, vowing to seek Eliza's help. A rustle outside makes her grip her knife, fear spiking, but it's only wind, and she leaves, determined to uncover SOSA's reach. Eliza's door creaks under Zitkala's hesitant knock, the grand house looming in the dawn light, her bandaged arm aching. Eliza opens it, her eyes widening at Zitkala's bloodied state, and ushers her inside, locking the door. Zitkala spills the tale of the warehouse in SOSA, her voice breaking as she shows the ledger, Kiona's name underlined in ink. Eliza's hands shake, admitting she overheard her husband mention SOSA's influence in town, her face pale with fear. Zitkala pleads for help to confront Father Thomas, her heart pounding with hope and dread. Eliza hesitates, glancing at the locked door, but agrees to distract Thomas at his office, offering Zitkala a chance to search it. A servant's footsteps echo nearby, and Zitkala hides the ledger, vowing to use Eliza's aid to find Kiona, her trust in the woman, fragile but necessary. A polished tray clatters in Eliza's hands as she pours tea for Father Thomas in her parlor, her voice steady as she asks about the mission school's charity work. Zitkala slips through the school's side gate, her knife hidden, heart racing as she creeps toward Thomas's office. Eliza's questions grow pointed, keeping Thomas engaged, her laughter forced to mask her nerves. Zitkala eases the office door open, her eyes scanning for guards, the ledger's weight urging her forward. She rummages through drawers, finding a sealed letter marked with SOSA's emblem, her fingers trembling as she breaks it open. The letter details a shipment of children, Kiona among them, and Zitkala's breath catches, hope surging. Thomas's voice rises in the distance, suspecting Eliza's delay, and Zitkala shoves the letter into her pocket, vowing to act before it's too late. She ducks behind a curtain, pulse hammering as footsteps approach, determined to escape with the proof. Curtains flutter as Zitkala presses herself against the office wall, the SOSA letter crinkling in her pocket, her breath shallow. Thomas's footsteps echo closer, his voice sharp as he dismisses Eliza's chatter, suspecting a ruse. Zitkala's fingers grip her knife, her wound throbbing, but Kiona's name in the letter fuels her courage. She darts to the window, prying it open, the cold air biting her face. Thomas bursts in, his eyes locking onto the open drawer, and he roars, drawing a blade from his robe. Zitkala scrambles through the window, her boots slipping on the sill, and lands hard in the grass, pain searing her side. Roy's shadow looms nearby, his gruff whisper urging her to run, and they sprint into the alleys, Thomas's shouts fading. Zitkala clutches the letter, vowing to use its secrets to save Kiona, her heart pounding with fragile hope. Alley shadows swallow Zitkala and Roy as they weave through town, the SOSA letter tucked safely in her shawl. Her wound pulses, blood staining her sleeve, but she pushes forward, Roy's steady pace guiding her to safety. He warns that Thomas will alert Harlan, his voice low, urging her to hide the letter. Zitkala's fingers brush Kiona's bracelet, grounding her resolve, and she recounts the letter's mention of a child's shipment, her voice trembling with urgency. Roy's jaw tightens, admitting he's heard whispers of SOSA's power, his eyes dark with guilt. She pleads for his help to raid the shipment site, her heart racing with fear and determination. A dog barks nearby, and they duck behind a shed, Roy's hand steadying her as Zitkala swears to confront SOSA's evil, no matter the cost. A rusty gate creaks as Zitkala slips back into the Lakota camp, Roy trailing behind, the letter's weight heavy in her pocket. She finds Wakanda stirring herbs, her face pale, and kneels, recounting the letter and Thomas's pursuit, her voice cracking with desperation. Wakanda's eyes blaze, urging Zitkala to rally the camp against SOSA, her hands trembling with old grief. Zitkala shows the letter, Kiona's name stark on the page, and begs for warriors to join her. A young man, Mato, scoffs, fearing Harlan's wrath, but Zitkala's plea, raw with love for Kiona, sways him. She ties Kiona's bracelet tighter, its beads anchoring her courage, and plans a dawn raid on the shipment site. Wakanda presses a sacred charm into her hand, whispering strength, and Zitkala vows to bring Kiona home, her hope flickering amidst the danger. Torches flare in the camp as Zitkala gathers a small band of Lakota, her voice steady as she outlines the raid on SOSA's shipment site. Mato sharpens his blade, nodding, while others clutch spears, their faces set with resolve. She unfolds the letter, pointing to Kiona's name, her heart pounding as she rallies them for justice. Wakanda, still weak, blesses the group with a chant, her voice quavering but fierce. Zitkala checks her knife and the charm, her wound aching, but Kiona's image drives her forward. Roy offers to scout the site, his gruff tone hiding concern, and she agrees, trusting his skill. A scout reports Harlan's men guarding the site, and Zitkala's stomach twists, but she swears to fight through, her courage unwavering. The group moves out, shadows in the dawn, ready to face SOSA's terror. Church bells toll as Zitkala slips into the mission school's office, the raid planned, her heart racing with the need for more proof. She riffles through Thomas's desk, finding a locked box with SOSA's emblem, her fingers trembling as she pries it open. Inside, a map marks the shipment site, confirming Kiona's location, and her breath catches, hope surging. Thomas's voice booms outside, returning early, and Zitkala stuffs the map into her shawl, her pulse hammering. He storms in, eyes blazing, and grabs her arm, his dagger flashing as he accuses her of theft. She twists free, kicking his shin, and bolts for the door, pain searing her wound. Eliza's shout distracts Thomas, buying Zitkala time, and she escapes, vowing to lead the raid with the map, her determination burning brighter than her fear. Dawn's gray light filters through the trees as Zitkala huddles with her Lakota band, the SOSA map trembling in her hands. She traces the marked shipment site, her voice low but firm, assigning Mato to flank the guards and Roy to signal entry. Her wound throbs, but Kiona's bracelet against her wrist steadies her resolve. Wakanda's charm dangles from her neck, its weight a quiet strength, as she whispers a prayer for Kiona. Roy returns from scouting, his face grim, reporting Harlan's men heavily armed at the site. Zitkala's stomach twists, but she rallies the group, her eyes blazing with determination, insisting they'll free the children. A young warrior, Chayton, grips his spear, nodding, and the band moves silently toward the site. Zitkala leads, vowing to bring Kiona home, her heart pounding with equal parts fear and hope. Rusty chains clank at the shipment site as Zitkala creeps through the underbrush, her knife drawn, eyes locked on the guarded warehouse. Roy signals from the shadows, and Mato's group slips left, their spears glinting faintly. She spots Kiona's small figure among caged children, her heart lurching, and signals the attack, her breath sharp. The Lakota charge, clashing with Harlan's guards, blades flashing as shouts fill the air. Zitkala sprints to the cage, prying at the lock, her hands shaking as Kiona's tear-streaked face presses against the bars. A guard lunges and she dodges, slashing his arm, her wound screaming with pain. Chayton tackles another guard, clearing her path, and Zitkala breaks the lock, pulling Kiona into her arms, vowing to escape together, her relief tempered by the ongoing fight. Harlan's roar cuts through the chaos as he storms into the warehouse, his rifle raised, aiming at Zitkala and Kiona. She shields her sister, pushing her behind a crate, her knife flashing as she faces him, heart pounding. Roy grapples with a guard nearby, shouting for Zitkala to run, his face bloodied but fierce. Mato's spear pins another guard, but Harlan fires, the bullet grazing Zitkala's arm, searing her skin. She stumbles, clutching Kiona, and spots Baxter entering, his cold eyes fixed on the ledger in her shawl. Zitkala throws a broken plank, knocking Harlan's rifle aside, buying time. Wakanda, defying her weakness, appears at the door, chanting fiercely, rallying the Lakota. Zitkala drags Kiona toward the exit, swearing to protect her, her courage surging despite the blood soaking her sleeve. Splinters fly as Zitkala kicks through a warehouse side door, Kiona's hand tight in hers, the ledger still safe in her shawl. Harlan reloads, his curses echoing, while Baxter draws a pistol, ordering guards to block the exits. Zitkala weaves through crates, her wound pulsing, guiding Kiona to a narrow gap in the wall. Roy tackles Baxter, wrestling for the gun, his grunts mixing with the clash of Lakota spears outside. Wakanda's chant grows louder, drawing guards away, her voice a beacon in the fray. Zitkala pushes Kiona through the gap, her own frame barely fitting, pain clouding her vision. A guard grabs her ankle and she stabs his hand, freeing herself, vowing to keep Kiona safe. They stumble into the dawn, the fight raging behind, Zitkala's heart racing with the need to escape with her sister. Gunfire cracks as Zitkala pulls Kiona into the forest, the warehouse battle fading but Harlan's shouts still close. She checks Kiona's face, wiping tears from her sister's cheeks, her own hands trembling with relief and fear. Roy staggers out, bloodied, urging them to keep moving, his eyes scanning for pursuers. Zitkala clutches the ledger, its SOSA secrets her only weapon, and leads Kiona deeper into the trees, her wound slowing her steps. Baxter's voice rings out, promising vengeance, and Zitkala's stomach lurches, knowing SOSA's reach. She whispers to Kiona to stay strong, tying the bracelet back on her wrist, its beads, a promise of home. Chayton catches up, reporting Wakanda's safe retreat, and Zitkala vows to expose SOSA, her resolve burning as they flee, Kiona's hand anchoring her to hope. Twigs snap under Zitkala's boots as she leads Kiona through the dense forest, the ledger clutched tight, her wounds seeping blood. Roy trails behind, his knife drawn, scanning for Harlan's men, his breath ragged from the warehouse fight. Zitkala kneels, checking Kiona's trembling hands, whispering reassurances, her heart swelling with relief at her sister's safety. She pulls the SOSA map from her shawl, tracing a path to the Lakota camp, her fingers shaking but resolute. A distant shout echoes, Baxter's voice vowing to hunt them, and Zitkala's pulse quickens, urging Kiona to move faster. Chayton catches up, reporting the Lakota's retreat, his spear bloodied but steady. Zitkala hands Roy the ledger, begging him to guard it, her eyes fierce with determination to protect Kiona. She vows to return to camp and rally support, her love for her sister drowning out the pain. Wakanda's tent glows with firelight as Zitkala stumbles inside, Kiona clinging to her, the ledger now safe with Roy. She collapses beside Wakanda, her voice breaking as she recounts the warehouse rescue, tears falling for the fallen. Wakanda's hands tremble, bandaging Zitkala's fresh wounds, her eyes proud yet heavy with loss. Zitkala shows the SOSA map, pleading for the camp to rise against the mission school, her heart pounding with urgency. Mato steps forward, vowing warrior support, his face set with resolve. She grips Kiona's bracelet, its beads grounding her, and asks Wakanda to hide Kiona, fear lingering for SOSA's reach. A scout warns of Harlan's men circling the camp, and Zitkala swears to confront them, her courage unwavering despite her exhaustion. Hooves thunder as Zitkala rides with Mato toward Eliza's house, the ledger's secrets burning in her mind, Kiona safe with Wakanda. She dismounts, her wound screaming, and bangs on Eliza's door, her voice hoarse as she begs for help to expose SOSA. Eliza opens it, her face pale, and ushers them inside, locking the door against prying eyes. Zitkala unfolds the ledger, pointing to Kiona's name and SOSA's plans, her hands shaking with hope. Eliza nods, revealing a journalist contact in the next town, her voice steady despite fear. Mato guards the door, his spear ready, as Zitkala pleads for Eliza to deliver the ledger, her heart racing with the chance for justice. A lantern flickers outside, signaling Harlan's men, and Zitkala vows to protect the ledger, her trust in Eliza a fragile lifeline. A quill scratches as Eliza pens a letter to the journalist, Zitkala, pacing beside her, the ledger open on the table. She recounts the warehouse horrors, her voice cracking as she describes Kiona's rescue, her eyes burning with resolve. Eliza seals the letter, promising to ride at dawn, her hand steady despite the danger. Zitkala grips her arm, thanking her, but warns of SOSA's spies, her heart pounding with dread. Mato reports a shadow moving outside, and Zitkala draws her knife, ready to fight. The shadow vanishes, but tension lingers, and she urges Eliza to hide the ledger until departure. Zitkala kisses Kiona's bracelet, vowing to see SOSA fall, her hope pinned on the journalist's courage. She leaves with Mato, determined to guard the camp, her wounds a reminder of the cost. Dawn breaks as Zitkala crouches in the camp's outskirts, Mato beside her watching for Harlan's men. She clutches Wakanda's charm, her thoughts on Kiona, safe but fragile, and the ledger now with Eliza. The scout signals Eliza's safe departure, and Zitkala's chest loosens, hope flickering for justice. She rallies the warriors, her voice firm, urging them to protect the camp from SOSA's wrath. Chaitin sharpens his blade, vowing loyalty while others nod, their faces grim. Zitkala's wound aches, but she stands tall, picturing Kiona's smile, her heart set on ending SOSA's terror. A horn blares, signaling Harlan's approach, and she grips her knife, vowing to fight, her courage a beacon for the Lakota. Ink stains the journalist's fingers as he publishes the ledger's secrets, headlines screaming of SOSA's child trafficking, shaking the town with outrage. Zitkala stands in the Lakota camp, Kiona's hand in hers, her heart swelling as news spreads of Harlan and Father Thomas's arrests, their trials looming. Baxter, shackled, glares from a jail cart, his threats of SOSA's revenge chilling her spine, but she holds Kiona tighter, refusing to cower. The camp buzzes with warriors' chants, honoring Wakanda's sacrifice, her loss a heavy ache in Zitkala's chest. She kneels, teaching Kiona to weave Lakota patterns, her voice soft but firm, passing on courage through each thread. A tattered letter arrives, SOSA's emblem stark, warning, "This isn't over," and Zitkala's breath catches, fear mingling with defiance. She tucks the letter away, vowing to protect her people, her eyes blazing with resolve. Kiona smiles, threading beads like her bracelet, and Zitkala swears to fight on, her love for her sister a fire that no threat can extinguish.